everybody. Welcome back to Mind Your Nest. I'm your host, Jennifer Rosen, and I'm really excited about the guest I have in studio today. She's so smart, and I've learned so much from her ever since I met her. Obviously, because of her depth and breadth of knowledge in all things political, it's sometimes hard to keep all of the information that I've learned from her in my brain, but I do my best. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Jessica Jansen. Hi, Jessica.
Hi, Jennifer. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here today.
Thank you. Okay, so we're going to get down to business, and I would love for you to share with my audience a little bit about you, where you're from, how you got to Florida, and how you got involved in this crazy world of local politics and beyond.
Yes, I'm originally from a small town in Michigan called Sand Lake. It's literally a speck on the map. It had a flashing light. That was all that my hometown was. Surrounded by cornfields on all sides. So I grew up in a very rural area and met my husband in 1998. Got married in 1999. I was barely 21 years old. I was a single mom for a couple of years before I met my husband. And then we had 2 additional kids and we moved down to Florida in 2006. We couldn't keep a $10 an hour job between us in Michigan, ready to be evicted from our $600 a month trailer because the economy and everything was so bad in Michigan. For those that don't know, it's a very car-driven GM, Chevy, Ford type of environment in Michigan. And that was really when it was like just before the big market crash in 2008. So we were feeling the hit all around us. And I think I was making like $12 an hour. And it was a job that I was working in a chiropractic office. And they're like, oh, you deserve a raise and we would love to give you more money, but we can't afford it. So we're just going to let you go.
Oh my
and
gosh.
So that was happening a lot around us. And I got into, I don't want to say a terrible car accident, but in 2005, it would have been the first snow of the season. Hit black ice, went off the side of the road, waited 6 hours for a tow truck. I was fine, but my car couldn't drive.
Oh my.
So I went home and I was like, I'm moving with or without you to my husband. I'm like, I can't take it here anymore.
Yep.
Terrible seasonal depression. And I had a very traumatic childhood and young adult life. So I was constantly living in trauma. And so I thought moving would be the next best thing. Right. And so that kind of brought us down to Florida. And we've been thriving ever since. It was a really good move for our family and started out running chiropractic offices and different type of businesses and just really became successful in the bookkeeping or accounting world.
Yes, I know something about that.
Numbers were very safe for me.
Yep.
And then that progressed into my own self-healing, which my personal development therapy actually led me to politics, believe it or not.
Wow. So had you done any of that personal taking care of yourself before you moved to Florida?
No.
Okay. And did you feel freer to explore that and want to go down that path?
Yeah, for sure. Because I was abused as a child, sexually abused. I didn't have a really strong support system. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that my parents didn't love me the best that they could, but my mom was very emotionally abusive to me, and we never really had a good relationship. My sister was supposed to be the only child. I was an accident, so to speak. So I grew up knowing and understanding I was an accident. That was my belief. That was my belief system that was ingrained in me. And I'm not saying it's my parents' fault. I'm just saying that they didn't acknowledge me in a way that was loving and kind and nurturing. If my sister wasn't taking care of me, I was taking care of myself. And that was just because of her own trauma, my mother's own trauma. My dad was an over-the-road truck driver. So it just was the circumstances in which I grew up. And I don't want to blame anybody. It's nobody's fault. When we understand our belief level as a young child, that's how we develop our own inner voice. And that was very negative for me for a really long time. And so coming to Florida, I worked for a chiropractor. Actually, that's what moved me to Florida. I got the job and came down to Boca Raton, Florida. I was so amazed and enamored with Boca that we decided to move here. I took a job, and the owner of the chiropractic office was very into Kabbalah. And he gave me a book. It was called God Wears Lipstick. And it was that book that kind of led me on my journey, because Kabbalah, for those that don't know, is very simply the study of positive and negative energy. And so that just helped me black and white things a little bit, so that it could be more understanding and more comprehensive of a level that I could understand. And then that led me on to my own personal healing of learning Reiki and energy and different type of healing modalities.
That's amazing, really.
Yeah.
You put so much out there just now that makes me even more grateful that I know you as a person. I've had a tremendous amount of respect ever since I met you, and I didn't even know you. I was just listening to you. But what you just shared is inspiring.
Oh, thank you.
And I don't know, I think it's wonderful. We could probably have a whole conversation about that. So when you were going through your healing and when you started being open to the idea that you knew you were on the right path to have a meaningful life, how did that help you turn the corner to get into politics?
Through my journey is what I realized, and I think a lot of women go through this, especially in their early 30s, is there's got to be more to life than this.
Yes.
I think we've all, especially women out there, will be like that aha moment. This, yes, I remember being there. It's like there's got to be more than just going to work and cooking dinner for your kids, giving them baths, and rinse, wash, and repeat every day, right? Yep. And then struggling to survive. It's like I always had a very tough lack mindset. And that's just because I was constantly in survival mode. I didn't know that there was anything but survival mode. Right. And so to really, the thing that kind of cracked everything open for me was, what was my part in it? What can I be responsible for? What choices can I make to lead me on to a different path? And understanding my own behavior, and whether that was the good, bad, or ugly. In personal development, we call it like the shadow side. Are we really understanding our shadow side? And my kids grew up with a mom that they called the dragon lady. I was very mean. I wasn't abusive per se. I did spank my kids. I did punish them. And it was very difficult to take ownership of that, and to realize that's what I wanted my parents to do. And so for me, my ultimate healing was when I stepped into that and realized that I wasn't a great mom. I wasn't perfect. And even though that I did the best I could, I harmed my children in different ways. And to really take accountability and responsibility for that, I went through a personal development course, ended up learning a lot of leadership skills in that personal development also, which is amazing because it did lead me on to politics, because it's really about understanding the human behavior that's involved. Yes. And when you're dealing with our local government and candidates and politics, you're dealing with human behavior all the time. Yep. And so when you are stuck in your own nitty gritty of your own belief system and what makes you tick, it's really hard to be able to understand the level of what other people do and how they affect us in our local government, whether, it's your local municipality or your federal government. These are a lot of human behaviors that come into play. And I think with, my years of therapy and just, I tell people, like, I've observed human behavior my entire life, because in an abusive relationship, I had to be 2 steps ahead of my mom. I wanted to make sure she was taken care of, she was happy, that everything was done, so then I didn't get yelled at. And so it taught me to observe and to predict her behavior. And that became a very strong life skill in business. I didn't graduate high school, but I always started in businesses at a lower level and worked my way up quickly to management level positions, because I was able to observe and understand without putting my own ickiness in it. Yep. It was just about, what is this business? What does it need to succeed? How are the owners getting in the way of a successful business? And how can I intervene to be able to help guide them into a more positive scenario when it came to their business? So in the businesses that I've ran, I've become very successful. And from contracting and a big emphasis in medical. When COVID hit was that aha moment for me because everything that we were being told about our health was nothing I was taught.
Yes.
Like I was taught like you eat healthy, you go to the gym, you work out, you pay attention to what you put in your body. And it was like McDonald's was open, but the gyms were closed.
Yes.
It was things like that I'm like, this just doesn't make sense. I don't understand. And when I was looking at the COVID numbers, and I don't mean to be disrespectful in any way, shape, or form because COVID was real, deaths did happen, but it was like, when you looked at the numbers, it was just another way that people died every day. Our death numbers didn't really go up. On average, across this nation, 8,000 people die a day. And COVID didn't really change that. So I was like, there's something bigger at play here that I don't understand. And I'm somebody that if I don't understand something, I'm like, how does it work? Let me figure it out. What can I do to get involved and to understand what this happened? And then when the 2020 election happened, it was very clear that something was amiss and something just didn't feel right. What did I do? I started to get involved and I was told that I could join the Republican Party and it was free and I could start to learn more about my self-governance. And that's what I did. I joined our local REC, Republican Executive Committee. I met a group of amazing people that you know as well.
Yeah.
And that kind of led on to that journey. And it came from a very honest place of, okay, maybe I can help fix it. And I don't want to say like I'm perfect and I know all of the answers, but at least I needed to feel like I was doing something because the trajectory we were leading to didn't feel good. And I didn't want my children to grow up in that kind of society and world. How can I fix it here locally?
God, you said so much and amazing stuff. And first of all, I love just the way in which you just explained all of that, because some people would call me long-winded if I talked, and I even still talk, but I think it's so important what you said and how you said it, and you gave such a perfect visual of where you started and how you got to where you are today. I'm going to pick up on a couple of things that you spoke about personally, because I do feel like we are very similar in how we got to where we are. And while I didn't have the trauma that you did growing up, I definitely would call myself the redheaded stepchild in my family, middle girl in between two boys, mother, father. We had a dog. I swear we should have had a white picket fence. I always thought that I grew up in a completely idyllic household my whole life. We were very fortunate. However, I was very overweight. My mother always told me that I should just have carrots and celery and a little bit of French onion dip instead of sitting on top of our soda fountain with a spoon eating ice cream out of the 3-gallon thing from Haagen-Dazs. And I was really happy doing that while my brothers would eat ding-dongs and ho-hos and never gain a pound. I love my mother. She's your typical Jewish mother. And I felt like I always had been like pushed down from the head a little bit. And like she checked me in terms of reminding me the reality of who I was as a human being. And my dad was this jovial, Rodney Dangerfield-esque kind of guy. He was my person, the best mentor I've ever had. And we were very similar. He loved to eat. He had congestive heart failure for over 31 years. His first heart attack was at the Bears game with a soda in one hand and a loaded hot dog in the other. And he thought if I died today, I would be in heaven. So luckily, he lived for another amazing 31 years. But I do feel and know that I always felt a little bit different in my family, and I don't know why. As I grew up, both my brothers, very smart. My older brother, Ivy League educated, and he typically, you can tell when you speak with him. My younger brother went to Michigan. And as I got older, people would always say, oh my God, Jeffrey, oh my God, Jimmy. And they'd be like, oh, honey, you're not dumb. And I'd be like, I know, I got in line for personality twice. And even though I went to college, I graduated, I went to get my master's and all of that. But I wasn't into this humble bragging that I felt I was surrounded by. For some reason, even though I'm a completely outward social butterfly, My mother said when I moved here that I could make friends with the table. There's certainly something very hermit-like about me. I love staying home, reading a book, an actual book. I love turning the pages and just sitting on the couch and binge watching shows that I've seen 100 times before. But as time went by, I was in my late 20s or so. I had one boyfriend, we broke up, and I started seeing all my girlfriends get married. I got fixed up on a blind date, and bada bing, bada boom, we got married. We had 2 children. We bought a house, and then I left. So we were together for about 6 years. And I have to say, it was really the moment that I decided to leave my marriage that really was a dividing line in me and how I felt about myself. And I'd always been in therapy too. I started at the age of 13, not 13 straight to 57. I took some vacations along the way. But there was definitely a time when I was leaving Jay that I knew that I felt like I needed a little bit of help with some tweaks and turns. My separation was highlighted by the fact that I was married to an addict, and that was really hard for a lot of people in the northern suburbs of Chicago that was a tough pill to swallow. Most people didn't know anything about addiction and really true mental illness. Some of them might. They never talked about it. It was like this poo-poo topic that you wouldn't even talk about. At that point, I really felt I was even more like the 3-headed stepchild and completely isolated. And it was like I was infected with somebody, and people wanted me to stay on the other side of the rail, whether they were going to catch whatever I had, whether I was going to potentially be a threat to their marriage or whatever. And I had 2 babies, and I was like, what the hell? I'm just a person. I'm a single mother. I have these 2 kids. I just want to raise my kids and have a peaceful, quality life for me and my kids. I didn't really think about my family. I was really just honing into myself and my children and, yes, the health and safety of my ex-husband. But it was really the first time that I truly felt independent. It was me in my own mind. I was always a free thinker. I didn't really ask people their opinions as I grew up and got older. My dad was really the only sounding board that I ever really had. I typically went to my therapist to talk about things, but it was really specifically situational by things that were going on in my family. And for some reason, I had always trusted myself. I don't know. There was a thing inside of me that I just knew. I'm a very decisive person. When I go to a restaurant, I don't take 10 minutes trying to figure out what I want to order for dinner. I have friends that will hem and haw, and I'm like, we've been to this restaurant 27 times. Order something, like 1 or 2 choices, and then decide. So as I was going through my life as a single full-time working mother, again, I was just focused on working, taking care of my kids, and trying to be the best mother that I possibly could. And like you, what you described about the guilt or being regretful about the things or the way I mothered, that I felt like this regret, or I don't think it was really regret. It was like this silent pain that I thought about as I would get up every day and go to work. And I was just in this rote machine, the hamster on the wheel. I didn't want to sit and reflect and see, am I fucking up here? Am I screwing my kids up? And we all screw up our kids in whatever shape or form, whether you have a perfect house, whether you're divorced, whatever. Our kids are all screwed up.
I had a coach one time that told me that it's our job to mess up our kids.
Yes.
And I think that gave me such a sigh of relief, because it was like I had generational trauma. Mm-hmm. My mother was sexually abused by her uncle when she was younger. And I see how that affected her and how it affected her marriage and her growth or lack of growth, I should say. And so I was able, by having really good mentors and teachers in the personal development world, help me see like it's correlated, but I don't have to take on that stuff. I don't have to be responsible for emotions and feelings anymore, that I was responsible for mine, and I could help with my children the best way through my own personal healing. That
That's
by
right.
the more that I was able to heal myself and grow and nurture myself, the more then I could be there for my children. And my two oldest girls were quite older when I went through this journey, but my youngest was 10 when I really started getting into personal therapy. And you can just see the emotional difference between my children, of one that was definitely more nurtured and one was more of I did it by myself, you can do it by yourself too,
Right.
in trying to be the most loving way possible,
Yes.
but didn't necessarily succeed in that. So the relationship with my two older girls is more strained than my youngest. My youngest still lives at home. She's like, I'm going to live with you forever. Why would I move out?
Right.
Life is so great here. So I get this constant feeling of this balance that I've created in my life. And, I'm a Libra, and those that are Libras understand that we're all about the balance. And I see how that fits so well in my personal life, and how to do my best to maintain that balance, but also how it relates to our physical balance in the political world that we live in.
Yep.
With two parties and all of the balance beam of life, I like to call it, is that we're so busy trying to just hold steady that we forget that life has a flow.
Yes.
That we need to flow with life.
So I would say, first of all, I completely understand what you just said. Me never having any direct experience with addiction or severe mental illness, having met Jay as an addict and suffering from severe mental illness, going back 2 generations in his family, I became very aware of how that can play out in a family and how it can cause destruction. It can sometimes cause destruction when you're not open and honest about all of that in your family. And I felt very fortunate, even from the time that I decided to leave Jay, that I was open and had already been part of the support group world, that we had already gone to therapy. I really wanted to learn. It had nothing to do with me trying to change him, because I do not believe, and never have, that you have any power over anybody else to change them. That I have power over myself. It's me, myself, and I. I look in the mirror every single day, and what looks back at me is what I need to take control over, not anybody else. Even my children. There were definitely times that Noah would go to school in a snowstorm or whatever, and he was wearing shorts and a T-shirt and maybe a sweatshirt. And the school would call me livid, and I said, what do you want me to do? The kid's not cold. But he can't get on the bus because it's a blizzard and school's closing early. Okay, so why'd you call me? We're going to grab a jacket from Lost and Found. Fantastic. I'm going back to work now. Same thing, it's when your kid wants to touch the stove and it's hot and you're like, Billy, don't touch the stove. Billy, don't touch the stove. Billy, don't touch the stove. But Billy wants to touch that frickin' stove, and he's got to touch it to learn.
Exactly.
So as I was going through the years of learning about addiction and mental illness, again, I felt like I was in a different world compared to the world that I was living in. The reality of my world, and then the really important reality of my world, which I knew was going to help take me to being able to mother my kids in the best possible way, knowing what I know now about my ex-husband and his history as well as his family's history. And it really was like living in 2 different worlds. It wasn't fake, although I did at times feel like I had to fake it to make it in the northern suburbs of Chicago. But that really wasn't what was driving me. What was driving me is really the pain and the trauma of what had happened to my ex-husband, as well as how it impacted both of my children and then eventually my son, who went down that path as well. And I couldn't absorb all of this stuff that was going on in the world, except for, I don't know, maybe 3-4 years ago when all of this started happening. And I don't know, it was like something doesn't feel right. I don't know, I'm not sure. I've always been told to use my mind, critical thinking, think for myself, that whole thing. And I was like that, like bohemian kind of beats to her own drum, dresses crazy, laughs at really sometimes inappropriate things. We're not quite sure about her. And I wasn't Ivy League educated, so that in and of itself was like, gray-headed stepchild. You know, that Heckman girl, I'm not sure about her. She's fun to be around. So when I really started to myself questioning things, and I'm like, how is this even happening? And everybody was freaking out around me. Not my kids so much. However, they were chided for not having the same opinions or thoughts and feelings as their own friends and what was happening in their circles, them feeling pressured because they couldn't play with Billy unless they got something injected. Thank goodness I begged them not to put anything in their arms, and they haven't thus far. But people that I was friends with my entire life dropped me like a hot potato because I kept getting my hair colored every 4 weeks. And I'm like, my gray hairs need attention. And I would get in my car and go get my hair colored. I'm not a fearful person. I'm not afraid. I love going up in an airplane. I'm relaxed. I might be afraid of spiders, but that started from childhood, and I would scream and force my dad to come in and get the spider out of the corner of my bedroom all the time. And I'm not scared when I see cockroaches in my shower now, but they do freak me out a little bit. So I'm still not scared. So I wasn't afraid about all of this. And it was like watching a silent movie, seeing everybody's fear and like strange fear.
Yeah.
Can't stand next to you.
It was like unrealized fear.
It was
Yeah.
strange. And I never said anything until I said anything, like when we were out and about, or I was going for a walk with my mom and 2 other people, and then I wasn't invited for Thanksgiving or the Jewish holidays or whatever. And my mom never wanted to have a conversation with me about, why do you feel that way? It was just like pointing fingers and having this really intense feeling and tone towards me, like I had done something wrong. And I just feel differently. I believe something different. And my dad used to say growing up, and I say this to this day because I think it is really true and important, that Baskin-Robbins has 31 flavors for a reason, and not everybody likes chocolate chip. And I've always felt, thank God all people don't like chocolate chip, because that's my favorite flavor, and I don't want a shortage on that. They have all these other flavors they could pick, for crying out loud. There are a lot of strawberries and cream people in the world. Like, go eat that flavor. So that was slowly starting to break down as I saw people break down and freak out and not like have a question mark anywhere. All of a sudden, you're okay with people telling you what you should and shouldn't do. Didn't you get by in your life by making decisions on your own? If you go back, like you were talking about, going back to not so much when you were raised, did you like bike riding? Did you like skateboarding? Finding your own way and then finding your opinions about things. But then all of a sudden, there were so many people that felt the same way about this stupid thing, and that was it. Yeah. You know what I mean? And you couldn't have an intelligent conversation without getting yelled at and screamed at, and then having all this animus come towards you, and then them saying, I just can't talk to you. Well, you just can't come to my house.
It's very interesting because it was like, I tell everybody, like, I was anti-vax before being anti-vax was cool. Yeah. When I didn't vaccinate my children, because I ran chiropractic offices, acupuncture offices, and geriatric medical offices. So I had this wide range of medical knowledge and experience. And so when I went to take my middle daughter to the pediatrician's office, for her 3-month shot. It was her first set of shots. And so this would have been, she was born in 2000. So this would have been in mid-2000. She was born in February. I remember her in her car seat sleeping, and the pediatrician was running behind. And they handed me like all of these pamphlets about her shots that she was getting that day. And I was bored. I think I had a cell phone, but you didn't text. You didn't do anything on it. It was mainly for emergencies only, sitting there waiting, the baby sleeping. I just start reading the pamphlets that they give. And at the very bottom, it says may cause death. And here I am, I would have been like 22 at the time. And before my oldest daughter, like, They said, go get your shots. I went and got their shots. So my oldest daughter was 3 at the time that Allison was born. And so I got into the pediatrician's office and I was like, what is this? This says may cause death. I've never seen this before. And she's like, well, yeah, it's just the disclaimer. It has to be put in there. And I'm like, but are you saying that if you give this to my child, she may die? And she looked at me like I had 3 heads, like nobody has ever asked this question before. Right. And I was like, how do I know if it's going to affect her? It would be basically an allergic reaction that if we can't stop. And so I'm like, okay, how do I know if she's allergic to it? And they're like, we wouldn't know till we gave it to her. And I said, she has no possibility of getting these diseases right now. Hepatitis B, which is a sexually transmitted disease and all of this kind of stuff. Polio was eradicated in the late 80s. So I'm like, you're just telling me to inject her because if maybe someday something might happen that she could come in contact with, and this may help at that time, someday, somewhere, somehow. I'm like, there are way too many question marks for me to inject this into my child because if she is allergic to it, I have no way of stopping it. I'm not going to do this now. And so then I educated myself. And so when COVID happened, it was that same thing. It was all of those question marks coming back again. Because I was like, hey, wait a minute. I've been in this movie before. I know how this goes. So I was questioning everything when it came to COVID. And then when we got shut down locally, I was like, this can't happen. This is not okay. And I couldn't wear a mask because of my body trauma, which I didn't know, bought a cool little sparkly mask, was like, okay, fine, I'll buy into this for a couple weeks to slow the spread. Like, whatever. I'll take care of myself. I still want to go to Publix. I still want to go to the store, whatever. Put on a mask and I literally passed out. So I was like, what's going on? Called my therapist, called a couple people, therapist friends that I know, and they're like, you have body trauma, which is basically my body's innate reaction to something from covering up my nose and my mouth because of when I was sexually assaulted. And so that then created a scenario where I couldn't wear a mask. And then I was told I couldn't go to Publix. I couldn't go get groceries. I couldn't go shopping. I couldn't go to the mall. And I felt like I was a prisoner because of something I couldn't do.
Exactly.
And so then that really led me on this journey of like, how are these decisions made? Who makes them? Who's in charge of them? How does this work? And how do we get people in those positions to be able to make sure that this never happens again? And so we really mobilized locally, politically, and put people in the right scenario to question the authority here locally and be able to say, no, we're going to have a seat at the table. And the thing of it is, they were able to do this with our elections. They've been able to do this with our health and everything else because we haven't wanted a seat at the table. We didn't take our self-governance seriously enough, so we left it to somebody else to decide. And so my goal in We the Locals podcast and everything that I do politically is to get people involved in their self-governance. It's important to know who your city council is, who your administrators are, who are making the decisions on your behalf, and making sure that you have a seat at the table when making it, that when those decisions are being made, and to do it before they're made instead of after and then complaining when the damage is already done.
First of all, I want to say one thing about all these shots. I listened to a podcast with Callie and Casey Means on Tucker Carlson, which was unbelievable. These two are whistleblowers and they expose Big Pharma in a way just to talk about all the damage that these so-called, vaccines or whatever have done to so many people for so many years, starting when their perfect child is born. And why do you need to put a shot in a perfect child at such a young age? But I do want to say that I learned several years ago when I started listening to Dave Rubin from the Rubin Report. I love him. And I actually saw him. I went down to Miami for a meet and greet before he went off the grid for the month of August. He knows he's my gay crush, and I just love him to pieces. I have 2 of his books. So I started listening to Dave Rubin many years ago, and he always said, focus on your local community, which is how I really connected to you and to Jody and Bill and everyone else to really do what he said and to get to know people in your community, because your voice means the most in your own community. And I love that the purpose behind We the Locals is?
It's we the people. It's really about understanding your local government. And we do our best. We actually video ours. We're on Rumble, YouTube, so on and so forth. So it's We the Locals. You can find us everywhere. I have co-hosts. Her name is Josie. And then we have our co-host, Abby Stafford. And we just basically talk about our local government. What is going on? Like right now it's budget season going on in our local municipalities and our local government countywide. So we can be involved right now, and it's really about letting people know where they can find the information, or at least giving them highlights and tidbits of information to at least make it so that they're more educated when they go to the ballot box. Who are the candidates? How to vet the candidates? If you would have told me in 2019 that I could call my local state representative or my local congressman and have a conversation with them, I would have told you that you were nuts. I would have been like, I can't do that. Now it's like I have my reps' cell phone numbers, my county commission cell phone numbers. Like I can actually talk to these people, and everybody can do that. They just don't know it. And so I'm happy to be that voice. I'm happy to be that lead in this movement of getting people educated that want to know. But the hard part for a lot of people to realize is they don't want to know.
Yes.
They don't want to be involved. And they leave it to about 25% of the population to make those government decisions for them. And I've just strived myself to be part of that 25%.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I didn't do anything. I didn't go into a ballot, literal little cube, and vote for many years. I do have to say that when I voted on October 18th, right before the deadline for the election, I felt great because, number one, you were extraordinarily helpful with your recommendations. And I took my list and I went in there. And I was so excited that Jody Schwartz won because I know her personally, and it's really cool. And I truly hope that as we gear towards November, that Bill Reicheter wins for the House seat in District 90 in Delray Beach and Boynton. And I truly hope that our candidates, the ones that you have vetted and recommend, the people will continue to wake up and just want to be honest about what is going on in our country and not being afraid to say it to themselves or admit it to themselves or
to ask questions if you don't know. That's the biggest thing.
That's right.
Is people just assume that they don't know. And the thing, our representatives have the most information, right? They're the most informed. They know what's going on.
Right.
And instead of trying to tear down the system, ask how the system works.
That's right.
How we've allowed so many people to pull those levers of government. We can pull them too. They're not owned by some Wizard of Oz behind the curtain.
Right.
That we can play and move those levers of government if we know how it works without having to disrupt and take a wrecking ball to the whole system, especially here locally. Federally, I think a wrecking ball would be a good thing.
Yes.
Stop it. Let's refocus everything else. But at a state level, let's figure out how it works, navigate it, and put the right people in the right positions.
Before we go, can you recommend a few places where people can go to get more information if they want to know more about the candidates that are currently running?
Yeah, you can check your local parties, whether it's the Democrat Party, Republican Party, or Libertarian Party. They all have websites. You can look to see what the preferred candidates are. You can also check on the supervisor of election websites wherever you are. Everybody has a supervisor of elections. Then they usually have a website that says what the announced candidates are. So here in Palm Beach County, you go to the supervisor of elections, you hit on announced candidates, you can see a whole list of the candidates that are running for Palm Beach County, regardless of their political affiliation. There's also like the GOP website, you have your Democratic website. There's different ways that you can get that information. But locally, you want to start local. You can also start, a lot of your municipalities will have like links to their candidates. Municipals are usually at the beginning of the year, so look for that come March. But it was what's on the ballot for November are usually your congressmen, your House seats, and your local county government. And and your school boards. So those are the most important things. And you can usually find that information by your local municipal websites. I do have a website, jessicajansen.com. I try to it's blank right now because we just finished with the primaries. So I have to reset it, but that will also have all of the candidates that are running and give it as much information as possible with link throughs to the candidates so that you can actually call them and ask questions. And I'm very strong politically tied with the Republican Party because that fits my views, my outlook. I think we have a better opportunity of having critical thinkers at the helm when it comes to the Republican Party. But there are great Democrat candidates out there as well. And we need to make sure that we get the best candidates in office to do the job that we need and not focus so much on political party, even though I tend to lean one way over the other.
I do have to say, as somebody who wasn't involved and never thought that I was a political person, ever since coming to Florida, I truly am grateful for my involvement and my desire to get involved and to learn and to educate myself. And it's been wonderful. And I've met and have become friends with some truly extraordinary people. Fellow Mind Your Nesters, if you are interested in getting involved at whatever capacity, I highly recommend you check out Jessica Jansen's website, and her information will be in the show notes once this episode drops. I want to thank you all for listening. Again, you're so flippin' smart.
Oh, thank you.
And
I appreciate that.
I look forward to learning from you as time goes on. Have a great day, everybody.
Take care.